So, this is part of an upcoming book I want to write. And so I feel like in the area of relationships, it's very polluted by commercial interests, political, religious interests and stuff. And by, well, I guess a science that hasn't been taken far enough. So I'm donating what I've learned from my my systematic and thorough study and stuff. Um, yeah. So how do you talk to, act toward, and speak to your girlfriend, wife, fiance, etc.? You know, it's an important question. Um, and it's necessary. It touches on something that has to be talked about. So, however, I'm not an expert. I'm still trying to grasp this fully. Some of this can even be asked backwards and stuff in terms of like its factual accuracy. Um, so for the first thing, more of the same from the beginning is probably what's going to do it. You know, all of it, all of the joking surprises, bold moves, attractions, etc. that you made or what made her go nuts for you is probably going to, you know, keep it going because it's not relationships are not fire and forget stuff, and yeah, they're just not. It's there, and there's an ongoing competition aspect too. So, oh, to avoid othering statements, and if you wouldn't like to hear it, don't say it. Okay? Women know exactly how to send back the same energy and stuff that you sent to them, um, or to sting you back if you intentionally or unintentionally sting them and stuff. Um, yeah, and yeah, regular potent sex and stuff. And I've said this in another video and stuff. Women have a great capacity to orgasm repeatedly and stuff. They do this without a problem. Um, having sex one to several times per day is not difficult for a lot of them. Okay. As a safety and moral tip, avoid rapid violent motions or semblances of violence during sex. Go for duration, intensity, sensitivity, and constant pacing. Okay. Um, yeah, violence has no place in sex and stuff. And I understand that some people they have a girlfriend or partner that insists on certain things and stuff. Don't. Okay? It's not okay. It's not okay. Um, be a man. Um, yeah. But manhood is a different topic. It's going to have another video series. But, nothing gets a woman more soaked in her panties than the unadulterated, ballsy, uncovered masculine. And this is especially true for gonadic females who almost obsess over relationships and sex every day. You know, nothing. Those very estrogen dominant women and stuff. They think about relationships and sex all the time and stuff. And they're yeah. Nothing gets a woman more in love with you than when she experiences internally that she's with the right one. If you nail these two areas well enough, you have created an ironclad relationship. Okay. And that's especially if you're a man of status and stuff. Like your your top dog, she's going nowhere. She's just not and stuff. And it's even more so if you have a kid with her and stuff. Women, they often get a drive to have kids and stuff, which can be affected by things like birth control pills. Birth control pills also kind of um, can disrupt the hormones and stuff. But um, they go through baby fevers, and if that baby fever is too much for her, but she's not having a baby and stuff, she can become very upset and uh, and like really upset to the point where she might actually just leave you and stuff. So you gotta understand that the possibility of kids um, has to be respected, you know. And a lot of the times that's make or break. And there should be, if you love a woman, you should have no problem doing that stuff. Like it's a love child. What's better, you know? What you think you're like? It, you know, it's you've already like at that point you've already started a family under a good detail and stuff. It's just the rest of the picture that needs to come together too. Okay. Um, but a lot of women don't want to have kids, so there's that. Okay. This conception of a woman that's being talked about here is a mental construction and stuff. Okay. Um, but we'll talk about like misogynistic mindsets later. Okay. Um, learn from experience and continue learning. Yeah. That like what worked before and failed and stuff is probably a sign of a change that needs to be made, maturity that needs to happen or whatever stuff. The man who refuses to mature throughout the relationship ends up being the loser. Okay. Um, unpredictably and unpredictability and adventure and stuff. This makes a lot of women excited and stuff. You know. Um, yeah. Fearless risk answering. Yep. Yep. Of course, don't mentally or emotionally, etc., abuse her. So the psychology of the human, the woman, are not the same as the enemy. Okay, or your enemy. All right. The like if you if a person develops a hate for women and stuff, they're just not going to process why they act a certain way and stuff and what they're really telling you from their behavior in terms of their needs, their wants and stuff. Because often people don't understand how to satisfy their emotional needs. But but having that skill for your girlfriend, wife, fiance, and stuff, like, just makes you dynamite and stuff. She's, she's, you, it just, it just works. Okay. But, political organizations, um, hold on. But yeah, misogynistic influence and stuff from mass media and everything, trying to paint women as evil, stupid, etc., and other external poisoning factors is part of what puts cracks in relationships. Financial stress does it more and stuff, but misogynistic influence does it and stuff. Yeah. Political organizations, organized religion, and corporate interests also try to undermine relationships as well as jealous or envious friend groups and stuff. All right. So role setting. Yep. So you're they generally almost always like it when a man is in a leadership or a taking charge role. So give her fair credit like you'd want fair credit. Okay. And a lot of the time, role setting or the leadership aspect and stuff is just you leading yourself and not being suggested around, led around and stuff. You know, like really. Um, Understand and abide that love is everything. Okay? How you talk to, act towards, and treat the women in your life, both to their face, behind their back, makes all the difference in your life. Okay? A lot of dudes, and this is shown in history one time or another, mess this up and end up incarcerated because a clear developed misogyny combined with misanthropy permanently ruins their lives and future. A lot of men hate their mothers, um, or have hated their mothers to the point where it becomes misogyny combined with misanthropy for anyone. So, you know, leave your family out of it. Okay? Um, So for any of you with a mama's boy inclination and stuff, you're gonna have to check that. Okay. If anyone knows how to get past your guard and hurt you, it's family. Nobody hurts you like family. Okay. Families almost always undermine or weaken relationships somehow. They cause prolonged separations and stuff like that. It's just at your expense. And of course, number 13, see my God and how to love a woman and stuff. Loving is part of how you act towards, speak to them and talk to them and stuff. You know. But So